How's it going, everyone? I'm Landon with LMR.com. In today's video, we're going to be installing the underbody portion of our SVE Fuel System Kits. First things first, if you would like to know a little bit more about the specifics of these kits, then I would recommend that you go watch our review video. In that video, I discuss the kit in greater detail and talk about the specifics of the components that make up each individual kit. Now, just to clear the air, we are going to be working with our $300 Fox Body, so there are going to be other areas that we need to address, but we'll get to them as time allows. The fuel tank is already removed from this car, so we won't be showing that in this video. If you would like to see how it's done, we have a separate video on fuel tank removal. Going into this install, I would recommend above average mechanical ability, a good selection of tools, and an extra set of hands. Well, it's only going to make life a little bit easier for you. All right, to get started, lay out all of your components and get familiar with everything that's included in the kit. Since we opted for a new fuel tank, we flushed it with compressed air. If you're not installing a new tank, you'll still want to ensure that the hoses and fittings are free of foreign material and debris, so flush those with compressed air as well. Remove the protective cap from the bottom of the fuel pump. Install the provided fuel sock onto the pump and verify that it's parallel with the bracket. Place a seal into the groove in the fuel tank. Fold the sock in half and carefully insert the pump assembly into the tank. Just so that you're aware, this will be a very tight fit. Wait until the pump is through the opening and then install the black corrugated hose. Look through the filler neck hole and verify that the sock is inside of the sump along with the black return hose. Install the lock ring and tap it into place. Remove the protective caps from the fuel pump assembly. Lubricate the O-rings on the -6 AN to AN6 O-ring port fittings with some dielectric grease. Install both of these fittings into the outlet and return ports on the fuel pump assembly. Finger tighten the fittings and then tighten them down with a 3/4 wrench. To see how the fuel pump is wired, please reference the wiring harness video. Go ahead and loosely install the 90-degree -6 AN fittings. We'll clock these whenever we go to install the fuel tank. Now you can go ahead and support the car via a lift or get it as high and as safe as you can if you're going to be working off of jack stands. Before continuing, make sure the battery is disconnected. Within the engine bay, remove the cap from the Schrader valve and depress the stem to relieve any fuel pressure. The lines that connect the filter are easy to remove, but we have a separate video on that if you would like to watch it. Loosen and remove the two 8mm or 5/16 screws that secure the fuel filter bracket. Remove the fuel filter and bracket from the car. Before you remove the factory fuel hard lines, go ahead and remove the passenger side front wheel and the splash shield. Locate the flex hose and hardline fuel connections near the passenger side front frame rail. Use a 5/8 quick disconnect tool and separate the supply hose from the hardline. Use a 1/2-inch quick disconnect tool and separate the return hose from the hardline. At this point, you can locate the attaching points for the factory fuel hard lines that run underneath the car. Follow the lines toward the front of the car and remove the attaching screws, rivets, and our push pins. If you notice, the rearward point had been ripped out of the spare tire well. This is a rivet and you'll need to drill this out. Separate the metal clamps and remove them where necessary. Remove the small screw from the hold down strap at the bottom of the wheel well opening and then remove the strap. Our frontward-most bracket at the frame rail was missing. Maneuver the lines around any existing component and then remove the factory hard lines from the car. Now it's time to assemble the provided filter and filter bracket. Install the provided filter into the filter bracket with the rolled end of the filter inside of the large end on the bracket. Position the hose clamp into place and loosely tighten. Take one of the provided quick connect adapters and separate the two halves. Install the short section of the fitting on the inside of the flare. Slide the long section of the fitting over the filter and loosely tighten the two halves. Do the same for the other side. Position the filter assembly into place and reuse the previously removed hardware. Remember, you can paint your old hardware to give it a fresh look. Go ahead and place the fuel tank shield and fuel tank on a transmission jack or a combination of floor jacks. If you haven't already, connect the fuel tank sending unit. Install the 36-inch length hose onto the outlet fitting on the fuel pump assembly. Install the 192-inch length hose, this is the return hose, onto the return fitting on the fuel pump assembly. To help keep track of the hoses and determine which one is which whenever they make it to the engine bay, I'm placing a piece of tape at the end of the return hose. Use an 11/16 and 3/4 open-end wrench to tighten these fittings. Before you tighten the 90-degree fittings, position the fuel tank into place so that you can get a good idea on which direction the 90-degree fittings need to be clocked. Go ahead and lower the tank back down. Generally speaking, these fittings will need to be clocked towards the passenger rear corner of the fuel tank. Once clocked, tighten both of these fittings with the 11/16 and 3/4 wrenches. While positioning the fuel tank into place, make sure you do not pinch the fuel pump wiring. Lubricate the filler neck and grommet with a touch of dielectric grease. With the filler neck loose from the bucket, install the neck into the tank. Lift the tank until the pads make contact with the spare tire well. Swing the tank straps around the fuel tank and the shield. Loosely thread the nut and then do the same for the other side. You can now fully tighten the nuts. Now if you're wondering, we used our fuel tank stud and nut kit, which makes life incredibly easy when installing the fuel tank straps, so I would definitely recommend you get this as well. Reposition the filler neck support and reinstall the retaining bolt. Feed the supply and return hoses through the small bend at the frontward corner of the tank. Loosely thread the short supply hose onto the fuel filter. Take the 144-inch length hose and feed it over the axle. Install it onto the other end of the filter and loosely tighten. Pass the return hose over the axle as well. Use the provided Adel clamps and secure the hoses to the factory attaching points. At this point, you don't have to get too crazy with hose management as we still need to install the engine bay portion of the system. Route the hoses in the same direction as the factory hoses. Reinstall the metal strap at the bottom of the wheel well opening. Feed both hoses through the small opening behind the passenger side strut tower. You can leave this loose until you're ready to tighten everything down. With all the hoses temporarily secured but still loose underneath the car, run back over everything and make sure it all looks good. You want to install the engine bay portion of the fuel system next and then come back to dial in the hoses underneath the car. Tighten the hoses and fittings on the fuel filter. For this portion of our SVE fuel system, you're good to go. All right guys, that's gonna do it for this stage of our SVE fuel system. Now depending on the setup in your Fox Mustang, you'll want to take a look at either one of our other videos that cover the installation steps for the engine bay portions. For more information on how to wire Aeromotive's heavy-duty wiring harness, check out the video in the description. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to drop us a comment. As always, give us a thumbs up if this video helped you, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content, and turn on notifications. That way you're notified every time we release something new. While you're at it, check out our other videos, and you guys know what to do by now. For all things Fox Mustang, keep it right here with the real enthusiasts, LMR.com.